Shout out to G-Man Boxing. Where's the piss bottle? It's over there.
Alright, people. Midweek report time. We got some news to talk about in this vid. It seems like all the news came on Monday and Tuesday. So, we'll start with this. This recently only just broke today. And it's a good fight. It's a fight that I thought was dead in the water. So, Joseph Parker and Joyce have reportedly struck a deal. This is from Mike Coppinger and ESPN. Reportedly struck a deal of a fight that will land in the UK, possibly on September the 24th. Parker recently signed a deal with Ben Shalom. A boxer has an exclusive deal with Sky, but this fight, if in fact it takes place, will be shown on BT Sport box office pay-per-view. Now, that's interesting. Now, in terms of location, they've said the UK, obviously this will be in the UK, but I've heard Manchester Arena, as being the leading kind of front runner. Now, as many of you will know, this fight was, and it was so annoying because they literally were there at Fury White, and you kind of thought, oh, they're going to announce a fight, and Frank Warren said it's all but done. And you're like, what does he mean all but done? Is it done? Is it not done? It never happened in the end. They were meant to fight on July 2nd, which would have been a great fight, and that was meant to be in the Wembley Arena. Instead, Parker fought Christian Hammer, and I was at that event, and everyone kind of was, talking about it, and the general consensus around even people in the boxing circles was like, yeah, this fight's never going to happen. That fight is dead in the water. It's never going to happen. Parker went to Sky, Joe was still with BT. It was never going to happen. But obviously, I have a few ideas theories, I should say, as to why I think that is happening. One of them, I think, is largely down to the fact that Sky were probably looking to get Dillian Whyte versus Joseph Parker too, and with some of the things Eddie Hearn has been saying about BT Sport offering Dillian Whyte a deal, Dazn offering Dillian Whyte a deal, maybe he looks at Sky and thinks, okay, you've been good to me, you put me on pay-per-view, but that's been when I was working with Eddie Hearn. Dazn, maybe their fights, maybe their purses are a little bit better, and he feels the fights are more winnable. With Chisora Trilogy, I'm sure Dillian Whyte feels he can win any fight, but maybe he just feels that Dazn, financially, it's a better package. He can get a win over someone and then look to get himself back at world level. Whereas Sky took Parker on. He'd be kind of almost going to Sky, going into the lion's den almost, so to speak. So maybe he's looking at it like that, and maybe Sky were thinking, crap, if we can't get Dillian Whyte, realistically, who else do we have? With the Huey Fury rematch, do we really want that? That would be weird. Not weird, but it's weird because the way Parker is so close to Tyson, that if they done a rematch with Huey, just think of it, Fury would be in, well, I'd imagine maybe he'd take a neutral stance on it, I don't know, but if they are as close as they are, he'd be in Parker's corner, as would Andy Lee, and Parker was going in there with Huey Fury, who was Tyson's cousin, and I think, is Andy Lee a distant relation to Tyson, or is it, there's definitely, are they cousins, or distant cousins? There's a closeness there anyway. That'd just be a bit weird, from the outside looking. You think it'd be the other way around, but that fight looks signed and sealed, and yeah, look, September was between Canelo, September is, and Triple G. A few weeks later, you have this. Not a bad month. Obviously, I prefer if it was in London, just because I'm more used to London. I prefer London than Manchester, just as me personally. No disrespect to anyone from Manchester, but I just know London a lot better. So if that fight was in London, I could go over to that, and I just know where I was. Manchester, I'm not too sure about, as in where everything is in that city. I'm not as familiar with it as I am London, but nevertheless, either or I'd go to it, either one. So Parker versus Joyce, I think it's a great fight. I'd imagine they'd probably put an interim WBO title on the line because both guys are highly ranked with the WBO. I think they're 1-2. So, and the winner would probably be mandated to fight the winner of AJ-Usyk. So a title shot, potentially either a title shot or say Usyk wins and he maybe tries to go the Fury route, something happens, he's to vacate a WBO, you could potentially be elevated to champion then. So potentially the winner of this fight may end up, big if, but may end up, at the very least, they'll get a title shot. At the very max, they may end up getting elevated to full champion. Who knows? If there's an interim title on the line, of course. So it's an interesting fight. It's a good fight. I can see why people would think that Joseph Parker beats Joe Joyce pretty easily, because Joe Joyce can look clunky, can look slow. But I give Joe Joyce a very good shot in that fight. I think it's a tremendous fight. I really like it. And that's why I was disappointed it didn't happen in July. It just seemed like that fight was dragging, and then Joe Parker went to Sky and just everything was up in the air. So I hope we get to see this fight. It's a good fight. And yeah, I'd say Joseph Parker would open as favourite, but I'm telling you now, Joe Joyce, underestimate him at your peril. That's what I will say about Joe Joyce. I think he's criminally underrated. I think people look and see how sloppy he can be. And he looks very novice-y, but it's effective. I mean, you don't get to be an Olympic silver medalist unless you're good. And many people, and even that was one thing that people were asking Joe Joyce about at his Hammer fight was, are they going to overturn the decision, which was against Tony Yoka, where many people believe that Joe Joyce won the fight. Not only did he win it, I believe he won it comfortably, but Tony Yoka got the nod. There was a lot of things going around about that Olympics in particular, about dodgy decisions and things like that. I mean, look at Mick Conlon. I don't have that much time for him, but look at him. He was completely robbed in his fight against, what was the guy's name? Name escaped. Was he Russian? I think he was. He beat him in the pros. But that's Joe Joyce. Joe Parker, we'll keep an eye on that. The WBC, this is down to £140, have ordered, and I like this fight. It's a very good fight. Regis Prograis versus Jose Zepeda. Regis Prograis versus Jose Zepeda for the vacant WBC super lightweight title. Ramirez, I was going to say, just when I read that, I was like, hang on a minute, what about Ramirez? Ramirez was initially ordered to face him, but has ruled himself out of contention due to his upcoming wedding and would instead face the winner. Alright, well, that makes a bit more sense. Either or, I mean, like, we've seen Zepeda versus Ramirez before, but Regis Prograis is an interesting one. I rate Regis Prograis quite highly. I think he's tremendously talented. I think after Josh Taylor, he's the best in the division. But he's really stagnated since that loss, hasn't he? I mean, he had a lot of momentum going into that Josh Taylor fight, and he stagnated quite badly since then. I mean, his last fight was back in March. No disrespect to this man, but it was against Tyrone McKenna. I mean, really. And, Tyrone McKenna took a shellacking. I think the corner stopped it. Now, if that was Prograis I'm not saying Josh Taylor wrecked Regis Prograis or anything like that. I mean, it was a very, very good fight. Very good fight. But I think that Prograis has just stagnated. And I think maybe, I don't want to say he's struggling to find the fire. Maybe he was on such a good run. When that run ended, he just needs to find the form. Just really kind of turn. Everything needs to kind of click for Prograis again. Because I think when he's on his day, I mean, if him and Josh Taylor fight 10 times, you could say that it's 5 apiece. Almost he's right up there, one of the best in the division. He really is, Regis Prograis. Now, I would pick him over Jose Zepeda. As good as Zepeda is, I'd pick him over Jose Zepeda. Against Ramirez, interesting fight. Probably would just favour Prograis against Ramirez, but it's a great fight either way. So, look, I'm happy with that one. I really am happy with that one. Eddie Hearn has stated they're now looking to make Jaime Munguia versus John Ryder next. Jesus, so Munguia's up at £168 now, it seems. I thought there was talk of him fighting Danny Jacobs at one point, but apparently they're going to send John Ryder in there. Look, I like Munguia, I like watching him, but his run at middleweight, to say it was anticlimactic was an understatement. I mean, he was middleweight for 2 years, he didn't do anything. I mean, he literally didn't do anything at middleweight. So him against John Ryder at super middle, let's have a look-see, we'll see. The interesting thing I want to talk about here, right, is Eddie Hearn. Well, not Eddie. I was going to say Eddie Hearn, but maybe this isn't Eddie Hearn. Before going in on it, maybe this isn't him. Maybe this is the zone. Maybe this is the execs in the zone. But Eddie Hearn did state, in fact, I thought I saved the tweet, but I might not have. I'll just check my images, but I'm pretty sure I saved it. From May of this year, I'll see if I can get it. where Eddie Hearn was talking about the Canelo Triple G fight being on DAZN. Here we go. May the 24th. Well, this is actually what's been tweeted. Canelo vs Triple G will be shown on DAZN pay-per-view in the US, price to be confirmed. This was again 24th of May. In the UK, Canelo vs Triple G 3 will not be pay-per-view and instead included within the regular DAZN subscription. So let's fast forward to August the 2nd. Canelo Triple G 3 on September 17th will be shown live on DAZN pay-per-view in the US and in the UK, as well as Canada, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand. The price is for the US $64.99, $65 essentially. And for subscribers, well actually no, this is the subscribers package. So you pay $65 if you're already a subscriber on top of your $19.99 a month. And you pay $9.99 in the UK, it'd probably be the same in euros actually, because it's the same price in euros in terms of how much you pay a month for DAZN, which is a tenner on top of your subscription. So if you aren't a subscriber, you pay $84.99 in dollars and $17.98, including 1 month subscription for DAZN. Now, here's the thing, right? Some people are blaming Eddie Hearn. Let's not jump the gun and say this is Eddie Hearn. Maybe it's DAZN, the upper execs in DAZN. Because let's remember, right? Blavatnik had to put, $1 billion or more into DAZN a couple of months ago. DAZN have been overpaying fighters like Demetrius Andre, like Lawrence Okoli, who is now looking to go to Sky. And obviously one of the reasons, and again, this is one of the reasons why I stand up for Eddie Hearn on this one with Okoli. What did you expect? I mean, you're not filling out the O2. You're not exactly the biggest draw in your own, probably even in your own division. So you're getting crazy money, or very good money, when DAZN are willing to give it. But now they're trying to make money on their shows. It's not going to happen. Unless you're making big money, it's not going to happen. If Sky can do that, happy days. But to go and say Eddie Hearn is a you-know-what, I mean, I thought that was real and bad taste. And considering what Eddie Hearn has done for him. But this is bad taste from DAZN. I mean, it's not just that. And people say, you're complaining, you just complain about, well, hang on a sec. First they say we're not going to have to pay, and in the US as well, that's crazy. But first they say we're not going to have to pay for it, which now we are. But as well as that, this isn't like Canelo Triple G is on at a decent time. You know, it's an unsociable time. It's on between 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. in the morning. So you're paying a tenner for that on top of your £8 to stay up till 4 or 5 in the morning. There's not one fighter from the UK or Ireland on that undercard, right? So it's not like you're seeing some of your own out there who are going to be promoted. It's not like that. This is a card. That's not a bad card, to be fair, but still, I mean, really, I mean, if they were putting on AJ-Usyk or something like that on DAZN, you'd understand it. You know, even if they had that fight and they said, like, okay, maybe we'll bring the time back by a bit, it's still not ideal, but you might be able to say, well, at least you're bringing it back to a sociable time. You're getting up at between 4 and 5 a.m. in the morning for something that's in your subscription package, which they said, 2 months ago, you won't have to pay for if you're already subscribed to DAZN. Now you're having to pay extra for it. That's bad taste. Now again, some people are jumping the gun and blaming Eddie Hearn. Might not necessarily, I'm sure Eddie Hearn isn't looking at that and thinking, I want to screw off, you know, my subscribers and people who are joining DAZN for the first time. I don't think that. I think it's more people above him saying, where's our money? Where's our profit? Because for the first few years, yeah, all right, fair enough, but where's our profit now? So it's annoying, you know, it is. And it's another, like I said, pay-per-views are expensive, you know. Here's, in the space of a month, right? So I just talked about Joe Parker versus Joe Joyce. There's a pay-per-view. Canelo Triple G, there's a pay-per-view. Anthony Joshua Usyk, there's a pay-per-view. Isn't KSI fighting on DAZN on pay-per-view? Now, I know most hardcore are probably not going to pay for that. But anyway, there's another pay-per-view. There's 4 pay-per-views in the space of a month. And people, I don't need to tell others this, but everything, I mean, we are seeing inflation like we've never seen. And yet, we are expected to pay 4 pay-per-views in the space of a month. And people just don't have that kind of money to chuck around anymore. They don't. I mean, like, it's crazy. how expensive things have gotten. Certainly in Ireland. Well, Ireland, I mean, we're rightly screwed because I think we are, if I'm not mistaken, we're either top three. I think we are actually the dearest country in Europe. So we're rightfully screwed in terms of inflation and things like that. Even in the UK, it's not as bad as it is over here for inflation. But yeah, that's a bad move by Dazn. And again, people are blaming Eddie Hearn. Look, I'm not. You're an Eddie Hearn. I've been called an Eddie Hearn hater before. I'm not going to say it's definitely Eddie Hearn saying all you pay for it. I'm thinking this is more along the lines of the upper echelons of Dazn, just saying, make us our money. You know, and one thing that's interesting is that, and I thought they would do something like this. To be fair, I was pretty sure they would. Was that they given new subscribers 1 month? So you're basically paying for a monthly subscription, because if you think about it, like £10 plus your your $7.99 roughly equates to what you're paying for the fight. So they want to make sure that from the 17th of September until October, the end of October, that they have some good fights coming up on Dazn in order to keep that market, you know, staying. Because obviously if you're putting on good fights, maybe a few people will say, actually, do you know what, I'll keep paying this. But if they're just putting on 2 cards and it's fairly run of the mill, yeah, they ain't going to stick around. Sticking on Eddie Hearn, he has said that Josh Warrington will have to defend his IBF title against mandatory challenger Luis Alberto Lopez. That's a tough test. That's a tough mandatory. It's not an easy mandatory at all. No, he's the guy who beat Isaac Lowe. Now Lowe had success in that fight, but Lopez is no joke. It's confirmed that Joe Cordina will defend his IBF super featherweight title against Shaket Rakhimov next. So again, 2 very difficult mandatories. 2 very, 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 very difficult mandatories. Let's see how that goes, because yeah, I mean, both those mandatories, they don't get. It's weird, right? You see some mandatories and you just think, how did you become mandatory? Like honestly, how did you actually get into that position to be mandatory challenger? And for some people, they didn't even have to fight; they were just named it. Which is one thing I find so strange about the way the IBF do things. Is that, like, Hrgovic had so many fighters, you know, swerve him to the point where, like, they had to go right down the rankings to get Zhilei Zhang. And I'm like, why didn't you just make him mandatory? But then you've got people like, and this is a different sanctioning body, but people like Anthony Yard, who twice are now mandatory. Like, he was mandatory in 2019, he's mandatory now for WBO, has not fought a final eliminator for either of them. Has literally not done it. I mean, he fought Travis Rivas in 2019, mandatory for Kovalev. He fought Lyndon Arthur last year, and that wasn't built as end. I think that was it even for a Commonwealth, or was it even for anything? And then he's mandatory for Beterbiev. It's like, how does that work? That, like, some sanction, and the IBF have had weak mandatories in the past, like, you know, Kevin Bizier, and wasn't Dominic Wade a mandatory for Triple G years ago? And I mean, he literally came and went and like that. I mean, I've never heard from Dominic Wade since. I think that was in 2016. So it's a weird one. But Wilder showed a picture of him with Badu Jack. Wilder back in training today, so the comeback for Deontay Wilder is on. And, you know, I'm quite happy to see Deontay Wilder back in the ring. You know, as a person, I don't have much time for Deontay Wilder, but I've said it once, I'll say it again, one of my favourite fighters to watch. I mean, tremendous punching power like that, Wilder is so fun to watch. You can't take your eyes off him a lot of the time. You know, just tremendous power, entertaining in the ring. It'd be interesting to see how he looks, because he's not won a fight since 2019. He's had 2 very hard beatings. Like, let's face it, the first fight second fight he was just dominated. He had more success in the trilogy fight, but ultimately he was taken out vicious. I mean, he was taken out more viciously in the trilogy fight than he was in the rematch. So you got to wonder, and he's going on 37? So you got to wonder how much is left there for Deontay Wilder, but power is the last thing to go. So he'll always have that punching power regardless. So Deontay Wilder, be interesting to see what he does. Wouldn't surprise me if he goes in there with someone like Hellenius and they build that as a final eliminator. Seriously. I mean, he's a darling of the WBC and Sullivan, so would not rule that out at all. Ben Whittaker, who had his pro debut the weekend, looked quite good as well. He is set to have his second pro fight on the undercard of AJ-Usyk Eddie Hearn said that there are still slots to be filled, and believe me, there's another fighter I'll talk about now in a sec, which I'm just like, why? But they're going to be filled by AJ's 258 management fighters, and it does make me wonder, like, Ben Whittaker is with Sky, but AJ and the majority of the other 258 fighters are on Dazn. I wonder how that's going to work. But one of the other fights announced for the undercard, someone want to let me know who either of these guys are, because one of them is a YouTuber, social media star, and the other one I don't even know who he is, but maybe he is something. So on the undercard of AJ-Usyk, we're going to see a YouTuber by the name of Money Kicks. Must have ran in the family, that name. He'll make his pro debut against Kyle Pavesi. Now, I've never heard of Money Kicks, obviously. Someone going to remind me what the hell he actually does, or what's he even famous for? Because he's a YouTube and social media star. I mean, brilliant. And he's going to make his pro debut on the undercard of AJ-Usyk. Right. Again, someone want to let me know who he is or what he does, and we'll have a look at him on the undercard. The last story we'll get to, and this is one I've been saving. I've been wanting to talk about this. Dan Raphael broke this story just in the last day. Daniel Dubois has filed a lawsuit against Don King and Don King Productions, in which he alleged breach of contract because he has not been paid by Don King for his fight with Trevor Bryan. I mean, is anyone really surprised about that? I'll see if I can get the article here. Dubois on Monday night sued Don King Productions in a circuit court in Florida, alleged breach of contract, blah 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 blah. The fighter hasn't gotten paid, and when boxers get in the ring and risk their lives, most important obligation of the promoter, the sanctioning bodies and the commission is to see the fighter gets paid, and that hasn't been done. This was quoted by Dubois' attorney. It says here that King won the rights to promote the fight when he won the purse bid on March 21st with an offer of $3.1 million to be out to $2.5 million from Frank Warren and Queensbury. Under the terms of the purse, Bryan was entitled to 55%, $1.7 million. I mean, imagine for that, for the performance he put on against Daniel Dubois to get 1.7 million. Seriously. And Dubois was set to take home 1.4 million, an astronomical amount. 1.4 million, don't turn their nose up to that. I mean, there's world champions, legit world champions who, I mean, you look at the lighter weight division, some of them are getting a couple of $100,000 a fight. There's some brilliant fighters not even getting close to that. According to the lawsuit, a copy of which was obtained by Big Fight Weekend, Dubois is suing for somewhere between $938,000 and $463,000. The reason for the discrepancy, as outlined in the brief 6-page suit, is because Dubois is unsure whether King paid the sanctioning fees to the WBA what was to be paid of his purse to the IRS to cover his bill as a foreign fighter. I mean, I could go on there, but there's a lot of legal kind of things that he's talking about that we won't go into. But cut a long story short, Don King is 90 years old, maybe a bit older, maybe 91. He has such a long checkered history of these kind of things. Is anyone really shocked? Now, it's not Daniel Dubois' fault he's not a Don King fighter, but when you hear stories as recently as 2018 with Vanis Martirosyan, who was promoted by Goosen back in the day, and he said that in hindsight Goosen's now dead, was the best promoter he ever had. I remember the story. He said that he went to Don King put like $400,000 on the table for him. There you go, that's yours. He fought once against Triple G and he's not fought since, and that money is all gone. Not because he spent it, but because Don King still to this day even has all those, that's just, what is a down payment on your service. He has to recoup that money somehow. It's crazy. It's crazy that people, because I've heard people in boxing circles, and these are people who are just, they're idiots, who've said that they really don't like MTK, and MTK is this, that and the other, but Don King's a good guy, I mean, he never ripped off anyone I know. It's like Don King's killed 2 people. Don King's ripped off so many fighters, but yet for some reason, and look, we know what MTK is about, but for some reason, MTK are sent from the devil, but Don King is A-OK. Really? Don King is the biggest scumbag in boxing. Still to this day, he will rip off, and he's 90 plus, and he will still rip off any fighter he gets the chance to. Any fighter he gets the chance to rip off, he will rip them off. How many fighters have had Don King in court over the years? How many? Loads. Frank Warren is bad. Bob Arum is bad. Right? In terms of how they are as people. They're not nice people. But Jesus, they're not as bad as Don King. I mean, people don't like Eddie Hearn, but Eddie Hearn, seriously, Eddie Hearn is like Santa Claus compared to Don King. I mean, Don King is one of the worst, even now. You know, he's 90 years old and still. And, you know, you gotta look at, like, that whole card was an absolute shambles. I mean, it was barely full. You know, how in God's name he was even able to get that money up for the purse bid is beyond me. And obviously, as we can see here, Dubois is not getting paid. I mean, Trevor Bryan, I mean, God only knows. It says 1.7 million. How much of that did he actually get? It's crazy. So, yeah, Don King, always been an absolute scumbag, out and out scumbag. He'll never change. And, you know, that's one of the reasons why he's so washed up in boxing. Is because he'd so many fighters leave him, so many fighters robbed, all the stories about Don King. And if you think Don King is a good guy, I mean, that says a lot about you. That's what I will say on that. So that's pretty much that. Hope you enjoyed it. We got a lot to talk about and a lot to cover in midweek report this week. I enjoy talking. I enjoy doing these, and hopefully we get some more out, or not reports out, but we'll get some more news and some videos out tomorrow and Friday, because a bit more time now this week, so we can definitely focus. Maybe we can even do a live, who knows. For now, I will leave you with that. People, if you could, smash the like button, hit subscribe if you haven't already, subscribe, share the video, all that good stuff. For now, lads and lassies, I'll talk to you